Hello, welcome everyone. The last time I was on Agile by Example, it was 2016, so it was a different venue, it was a different place, and it was a different topic. But if anyone still remembers me, welcome back. As it's been said, I'm a consultant, and I was for quite some time. And as a consultant, I have to say that since 2016, the last time I was on Agile by Example, a lot of things has changed as well. And I started to meet people who get better results at my job than I am. And it all comes down to one simple thing. Like people in marketing will tell you that it's just one simple trick that changes everything. And it does, but I'm not going to tell you it right away because then you would sneak out and go to the other speech. So you have to bear with me for a while. And bearing with me for a while, we'll start with my role and some other roles as well. I am very often in the position of an Agile coach. And sometimes I think, am I an Agile coach or maybe am I just an Agile advisor? Because it seems like a lot of what I do is sit on such meetings and just talk and talk and talk with other people, and nothing really changes. Sometimes it does, sometimes the change happens, but very often it does not. So if you ever feel like you're doing the same, that's the talk for you. Because I would like to share with you one story about one person who could do more than just talk. And that person did more than just talk and got, as I said, better results than I did in that company. So let's start the story with setting up the stage. Imagine your favorite big corporation in an inflexible, non-agile, very rigid industry. You think government agencies, think banking, think insurance, things like that. We all love those, right? And a person that I'm going to describe shall remain anonymous. I'm not going to disclose who she is, but I can tell you she was a program manager in the company I just described. And I'm not necessarily saying she's a she, but let's assume she's a woman, because that will allow me to use in a professional context the phrase, "that's what she said." For example, let's just have that one meeting and see if we need to make it a recurring event. That's what she said. And we just had the one meeting, and it turns out it was pointless, and we never did it again. She said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just make sure it happens, right? So done is better than perfect. Clearly an Agile mindset, right? And that's what we did. Is this meeting still fulfilling its purpose? Are we just duplicating the other status meetings that we have? That's what she said. And then she canceled that meeting. And then she freed up 1.5 hours from everyone's calendar with just one simple click. I'd like to remind you that most Agile coaches are adding to people calendars, and Scrum Masters are adding to people calendars new meetings, new events. She did exactly the opposite. And again, this is a good one. We can spend a couple of more months debating how to do it, or we can just go with what we have and get it done next month. So, as a manager, as a program manager, she clearly had the Agile mindset. She clearly was doing the right thing, and she didn't use any of the buzzwords. She didn't say anything about Agile. She didn't say anything about Scrum, iterative development, continuous improvement, all that. Those words never were spoken. That's not what she said, basically. So who was she, and how could she do what I couldn't? She was a program manager. She was responsible for dozens of projects. Yes, projects, not products. And for bad or for worse, she was responsible for them. So also she had the authority to do some things. She was empowered to change stuff. Because at the end of the day, whatever happened, good or bad, it was on her. It was her program. She was above project managers, but below the steering committee. So very difficult position to be in. And she had somehow make the program works better. And she believed, because we clearly see from what she said, that she had Agile mindset. So she clearly believed that Agile is the way to go. But she didn't talk about Agile. She just made it happen. How? Well, I already told you how. It's just one simple word: authority. Well, maybe not that kind of authority, but authority in general. Like, if we can influence what we are responsible for, as it should be, it always should be. Like, if I have authority, I can have responsibility. I don't necessarily welcome responsibility without authority to change anything, because that's just pointless. That means I'm doing someone else's job. But she had the authority, and she could basically tell people how to do stuff. But not always. Sometimes she said things like this: you figure it out and let me know how you done it. So that's a clearly empowering statement, right? That I don't care about how you're going to solve it, just solve it, but do tell me how you did it. That's good, right? But sometimes what she said was, oh, we're going to do it this way, and there is no even a space for asking any questions. You might say, this is not Agile, right? But you have to understand that if you're responsible for something, if you have the authority to change, and if you want things to be good, sometimes there is no time to ask 100 people to come up with a solution if you already know what the solution is going to be. Sometimes you have to just state how we're going to do things. So the question is, because the theme of this is program manager is better Agile coach, well, why can't the Agile coaches do it this way? Well, obviously because most of the Agile coaches are just consultants, and the only thing they can do is talk, talk, and talk. Which reminds me, do you know that the original name for Pac-Man was Puckman, P-U-C-K? You might think it's because it looks like a yellow hockey puck, but in reality it comes from the Japanese phrase paku paku, which means to flap your mouth, open and closed. They changed it in the US because Pac-Man is a little bit too easy to vandalize. You can scratch the P, turn it into an F, or whatever. And if you know that movie quote, because it was a quote from a movie, I would like to have coffee with you during the next break. Let's go back to the Agile coaches who just talk, talk, and talk. That's what the industry really is about. And I'm not bashing the profession. I'm an Agile coach myself. But that's how we are mostly being employed, as advisors, as people who talk and sit on the meetings, but someone else is making a decision, all the decisions. So if we could, with our Agile mindset, somehow get into the position of becoming program managers, project managers, directors, C-level people, we could do way more for the agility, for the betterment of processes, teams, and everything else, than as Agile coaches, for example. It's not easy. It's not easy to become a manager. You have to educate yourself a little bit, probably. You have to take responsibility for your results. You have to know how to manage risks. You have to know how to manage people. You have to think about, are my ideas for improvements profitable? Are they viable? What will happen if we actually implement them? But as I clearly see with the program manager I'm talking to you about, that's the way to go, I think. So, dear Agile coaches, me included, think about the positions of authority. Think about how you can actually make changes instead of just talking about the changes. Okay, this is the reminder to fake looking at my watch, which isn't a Rolex, sadly, and realize, I still have 5 minutes. So let's maybe talk about Scrum Masters, shall we? And think about, are Scrum Masters in the same positions as Agile coaches? Are they people who just talk, talk, and talk, and don't get any results? And I was thinking about that very hard when I was preparing for that speech, and I think the Scrum Masters of old, the old Scrum Masters, had the authority. Because the old Scrum Master, people who were working in the teams, they had their hands dirty, they were doing the job, and at some point they just decided, this can be done better. Let's try doing things better. And they did. And they proposed stuff and they figured out stuff with people from their teams because they had authority. Everyone respected them because they knew what they were doing. Now fast forward to the so-called professional Scrum Masters working in white gloves, very often hired as consultants, as an external people. They never work through the team. So they don't really have the authority to propose stuff. And I have to say, sometimes they don't even have the knowledge. Because if someone never worked in a development team, in a Scrum team, they don't really know how to do most of it, even if they learned about it. Imagine if I was trying to advise you about hair products. Would you like to use the shampoo I recommend? Or I can tell you which one not to use, by the way. That's the extent of my knowledge. So, going back to our Scrum Masters, I think the new Scrum Masters, if there ever happen to be, are going to be, again, people who are in the position of authority. Just like the old Scrum Masters got the authority from and respect just from being a part of the team, the new ones are probably going to have the authority from the hierarchy we implement in organizations. So, I already seen some Scrum Masters being team leaders, being line managers, having agile mindset, just as the program manager that I'm talking to you about did, and implementing various concepts without really talking about them. So less talking, more doing, and more making decisions. Because, and I like to end this speech on a positive, optimistic note, although I think I chose the wrong picture, I don't think the Agile is dead. Like, a lot of the concepts from Agile Manifesto, from 12 principles of Agile software development and all that, a lot of that is already implemented and basically standard in most places. So we don't have to do that. We don't have to implement that. We don't have to teach people about that. Some concepts are still foreign, obviously, but the way I see it, we are not being recruited, we are not being paid for implementing Scrum or implementing less or Next or Safe or any other framework. We are, again, as I was introduced, we are again being paid to be consultants. And that brings me to the last quote I want to share with you. I need to justify paying for Agile coaches and Scrum Masters. That's what she said. And she was right. Right? You have to justify expenses, especially when you're paying for consultants. And I think it's going to be way easier to justify hiring managers with Agile mindset than just hiring Agile coaches and Scrum Masters who, as I say, mostly talk and are not really able to change things. So looking forward, I would have to say I'm pretty optimistic. The work is there, but it requires some of us, most of us, all of us, we'll see, to change careers from being experts in agility to being probably experts in management. And that's all. Thank you very much.